the climate. So the climate change is everything for our country, for Ethiopia. And the first thing is, what cause of climate change? What cause of climate change? This means like it goes by many things, goes by many things, by many means, like it goes by deforestation, because it goes by factories and etc. And we this to change this climate change and to change the decrease of climate change is, when I say this, to decrease the climate change is first planting trees. This is the first things in our country policies. Planting trees. This is the main things for climate change. I say that for our country policies. And the second one is, in addition to that, to decrease factories. When you say this thing, many climate change is caused by factories. That's why I say this. And in my country, many people are in agriculture. That it comes from a main, that's, I say, sorry, to decrease factories, to increase agriculture. That's the mean to change the climate and to good for the climate change. I say this in my way. Thank you.
All right, thank you, delegate from Ethiopia. You know, Ethiopia has so many delegates. So another delegate from Ethiopia.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, so loud.
Okay. I'll speak now. The first question was, what's climate change? Climate change is the global warming and its effects.
Sorry to interrupt, delegate. Would you put on your video if you don't mind?
The video?
Yes, if you don't mind. But if you're okay, still we'll go with that. But if you don't mind, we would want to see your face speaking. Yes, awesome.
Okay. Well, the first question is, what's climate change? Climate change is global warming and its effects as known. And the other question was, what is the policy of Ethiopia towards this climate change? Well, Ethiopia have been working very well in the climate change, and it have been working with other organizations like UN, and it have also been working in promoting uses for working on solar powers, and also working on our recent resilience dam, which is working without any kind of carbon fuels and regenerating electricity, and that means that it's producing a pure it's connection, I think.
Sorry.
It's a pure energy. And recently, our Prime Minister, Dr. Abiy Ahmed, have been working on green legacy, which is planting more trees into the environment, which will reduce the climate change in the upcoming future. And by that, Ethiopia have been contributing in climate changes, and her policies toward climate change have been strong since we know so far. Thank you.
Thank you, dear delegate from Ethiopia. Other delegates from Ethiopia. You know, Ethiopia sent many delegates to emphasize the
Shall I continue?
Climate change. Sure, come in.
Shall I continue?
Sure, yes.
Okay, thank you. Like all signatories of the Paris Climate Agreement, Ethiopia submitted action or plan, technically called the NDC, national determined contribution to the United Nations Framework Convention. The NDC, come embedded in a border climate resilient green economy strategy, which grow out of an existing effort to boost productivity on farms in parts of planting shade trees and among coffee plants, but also by spreading solar energy across the countryside and helping local communities regenerate 22 million hectares of degraded forest by 2030, and a plan that amount of nothing less than a complete overhaul of agricultural sectors. So I say this is a very effective plan, and we have reached, last year we have planted 5 billion trees and 80% of which have grown effectively. So I say the policy is working for us.
Cool. Thank you, delegate from Ethiopia. Other delegates from Ethiopia? I see someone raised her hand. Please go ahead, Ethiopian delegate.
All right, thank you, Chair. Is my voice audible?
Yes, it is.
All right, thank you. So climate projects include increase in temperature, erratic rainfall, and unpredictability of seasonal rain, and increased incidences of drought and other extreme events. Climate change will have a key impact on agriculture, livestock, and water, and human health in Ethiopia. Ethiopia is vulnerable to climate change, and this situation is increased by high level of poverty, rapid population growth, and reliance on rain-fed agriculture. In addition, high level of environmental degradation, chronic food insecurity, and frequent natural drought cycles. And according to the steps that have been taken by countries across the world to tackle this problem, Ethiopia have been playing a big role. And as the UN data shows, Ethiopians are among the most climate innocent people on the planet. And the average Ethiopia, for example, generates just about 1.3 metric tons of greenhouse gas emission per year, while the average American generates about 20 tons. So like many governments, the Ethiopians is also under pressure to reduce poverty and create jobs.
Yeah.
And unlike the other countries, Ethiopia is playing a big role in reducing its greenhouse gas emissions even further with targets of net zero by 2025. Thank you, Chair. I would like to yield the floor back to the Chair.
Thank you. Thank you for observing time. Delegates from Ethiopia. Want to hear a delegate from Burundi?
Okay, well, thank you. Burundi stands saying that Burundi is also one of the countries that really try to do its best to make sure that it doesn't contribute to this global warming, and it really observes climate change and wants to make sure that that we really try to make sure, Burundi tries to make sure that we don't emit as much greenhouse gases in the atmosphere as we can. So Burundi stands saying that stands with Ethiopia and all the countries that try to minimize this greenhouse gases. Yeah, basically that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate from Burundi. Delegate from Kenya. Delegates from Kenya. In the house or taking a commercial break? Okay. Delegates from Uganda. Delegate from Uganda. In the room? Okay. South Africa. South Africa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as South Africa, we were really affected by the climate change, as you all know, since 2015, like the drought by being in the drought belt, which really the territory of countries that are really affected by the climate change, like drought, rainfall. So as South Africa, we have, as changed our policy, has submitted a national climate change response white paper and the national development plan, which basically is to present a vision to our neighboring country and to the African Union for an effective response to climate change. That means we need, we're emphasizing the regional response to climate change, not as an individual, but as a region, as a block region from SIDEC, from even AIC. So, which basically it's focused on implementation of program. It's called individual programs, whereby we involve the youth, education, social projects, where we incite like our population to take action themselves before presenting to the national government or to any province, local government. Yeah.
Thank you, delegate from South Africa. So I can see South Africa still stands with many other delegates. Okay, Uganda, your turn. Delegates from Uganda. Okay. Rwanda. Rwanda, you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, my internet connection was very bad and I've just come now. So I'm just gonna talk about what happens in Rwanda from what I'm expecting with regards to climate change.
Yes.
Okay, fine. Okay, fine. So, of course, all of you know about the Rwandan Genocide from like 1992, which caused a lot of problems, of course, for Rwanda. But after that, they have so many sustainable growth developments because along the journey, they have recognized the importance of environment and climate change in sustainable development. For example, in 2003, the government of Rwanda adopted its first ever environment policy to guide the management of environment and natural resources in Rwanda. And if you also remember, Rwanda was one of the first countries to actually ban the use of plastic bags. Even being a small country, it was able to progress so much. And there was also a Kigali agreement which moderated the emission of greenhouse gases, which if you think about it, can free up a lot of electricity in reducing power plantations. And I think I agree with all other countries that have been here about we really need to work to improve the climate because globally it's a major problem in the world. And that's all I'll say for right now, but I'll keep giving my points later. Thank you.
A delegate from Rwanda. Uganda. Are delegates from Uganda taking a commercial break? What's happening? Are they in the house? Kenya. Kenya.
My name is
Are you muted? Would you unmute yourself? Yes, now you're okay.
I didn't hear anybody speak about the climate change political issues.
Do you increase your volume?
I'm saying I didn't hear anybody speak about climate change being a political issue.
We can't hear you well. I don't know if it's me or others can, but we can't hear you well.
We also can't hear well, but she was talking about how it's no one has talked about how climate change is also a political issue, if I heard that right. That's what she was asking.
That's why she has to present her points. So we want to hear what Kenya says about that issue. That's why it's her time. Are you still there, Kenyan delegate? Okay. Seems the Kenyan ambassador is having technical issues to connect. Yeah, so Ugandan delegates, I'm waiting for you. Uganda. Unmute. Unmute yourself, Uganda. Okay. Can't hear you, please.
I'm sorry, I'm having network issues.
We can't hear you, Uganda. Okay, we'll proceed, and Uganda, I think Uganda is having some technical issues. We can't hear you well. So still today, there are some questions we haven't tackled. Kenya, are you back?
Yeah, I'm back.
Okay, so it's your time.
Okay, let's go to the point. Like what we are trying to do back in Kenya, we are going to like mention issues about gender, youth, and special needs groups in climate change actions. That is, in terms of women in the society, their roles are very effective, so they can be used as good agents to climate change. And then we have climate financing, regulatory framework, access to information, education, and public awareness. And then we have capacity building. And we have seen a lot of success out of the Paris Agreement that was there. And we have.
Can you come closer to your mic? If you have the mic, can you come closer to your mic? We can't hear you well. Okay. All right, sure. I think the delegate is having some issues. Anyhow, so we haven't tackled many questions that would. Yes, I can see here messages that people can't hear you well. Kenyan delegate, if you're coming, make sure your mic is loud and clear. Anyhow, let's go ahead. So we haven't tackled some of the questions yet. So we want to hear the country's policies about how we want to hear about how has the world tackled climate change? How is Paris Agreement a failure or success? Ethiopia, what's your take on this?
Shall I start?
Yes. Yes, please.
Well, there is also the Kyoto Protocol, but I would like to focus on the Paris Agreement since it's the latest one. As of February 2020, 194 states and the European Union have signed this agreement. So 189 states and the EU representing 97% of the global group have ratified or acceded to the agreement, including China, the United States, even though it's notifying to the UN of its decision to withdraw from the agreement, and also India. The country with three-fourths of the largest greenhouse gas emissions. I think it's a success or a failure would be very controversial. So I would like to call it a success, but with a little bit of inefficiency.
Yeah. The delegate is having some network issues. We will continue as goes ahead. Anyhow, she's big. Oh, she went. She freezed. Anyhow, we want to hear more like other delegates from Ethiopia. What's your take on this? How is the climate? How has is Paris Agreement? Oh, you back? Sure. Unmute yourself.
Am I audible?
Yes, now we can hear you.
So I wouldn't call it unsuccessful, but I would call it a little bit inefficient. It's since because of reason. One, by nature, human beings need either reward or punishment in order to come about a very big change. So I say it needs to be a little bit legally binding so that people would work towards the goal. And the other is we need a lot of research. Needs to spend a lot of money on research. Since it's a global issue, the research needs to be done globally on different geographic regions. And the other issue that I would like to mention is that it needs to be the UN should organize meetings in which we can tackle this problem regionally, because due to these three reasons, it has been inefficient, but it has also made some good achievements, such as the Australian car-free cities, the Indonesian leash, and also the an Indian man by himself, which seems like an awareness created in India, has planted 5 hectares of forests, so which seems like India is working very good after the Paris Agreement on awareness creating. So I say I wouldn't. Also in Kenya, there have tackled some issues related to the current issue of climate change. So I say it is working, but it has been a little bit inefficient due to the 3 reasons that I mentioned earlier. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate from Ethiopia, for the laboratory side. Who agrees with her? I mean, the delegate from Ethiopia. Other Ethiopian delegates who want to throw more light on that?
Yes, can I speak?
Sure.
Okay, I'll be representing Ethiopia. Well, the Paris Agreement had a lot of people cheered, like the world leaders like Barack Obama, painting it as a historical moment. What it means and what it does, the Paris Agreement, is that virtually all nations commit to reducing their carbon emission as soon as possible and to do their best to keep the global warming as well below 2 degrees centigrade. If that happened, it's a good shot, we could be in a good place in the future. The problem is that it's not legally binded, or it doesn't have a created of timeline to meet their pledges, which varies from countries to countries. We call like Brazil, Russia, their development is mostly on industrialization, so it can be challenging for them. So the pledge is not well enough met in 2 degrees goal. The good thing about the Paris Agreement is that getting every country to commit to it is some kind of carbon reducing represents a huge process, and which developed countries are investing money so that the developing countries develop clear power energy system and reduce deforestation, which is the second contributing to climate change. Nations commit to come back every 5 years with a new target, which is also a good thing. The Paris Agreement didn't do didn't do everything, like it didn't really succeed much because of it didn't end the climate change, from them at once. And but nations are saying that the days of burning fuels will quickly come to the end. So I believe that the Paris Agreement didn't really fulfill all its goals, but it was really a success.
Okay, a delegate
Thank you.
Ethiopia shares sentiment. It was not it was a success, but we want to hear that about a success. How is it a success? How is it a success, or how is it a failure?
Okay, the failure.
No, I'm
Okay.
just posing questions.
Okay.
Think about.
The failure is that it's not legally binded, and most countries are not agreeing with it. And the good thing about it is that it gets a lot of nations to commit to some point to reduce their carbon emissions, and for developed countries to help the developing countries by money and investing in them to create a pure power source without carbon emission, and also reduce deforestation. And those things are the main points of driving climate change. So at that point, if we see it, it's really a success.
Awesome. Thank you, delegate. The Ethiopian delegates want to re-echo sentiments shared by Ethiopia. Yes or no? Or you feel your views are fully represented? Okay.
Sorry for the interruption. Sorry for that. Our guest Julius will have another meeting, so let's introduce himself, and we will be proceeding to another.
Do you mind? Do you mind if you do that later?
He is going to leave the meeting because he has another meeting. Sorry for that, and he would just introduce himself, and next time we would be sharing us and his experience. That is why.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry. I would like to have our guest Julius. He is well experienced with an international ambient, so let's get greetings and let's invite him as well. So Julius,
Yes.
can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Yes, it is an honor to have you with us. And how did you see this training with this time, and introduce yourself as well?
Yes, thank you, Yasmin. Thank you to the organizers of this great program, and thank you to all the distinguished delegates from Ethiopia for having me here today. I really appreciate it. It's an honor for me. With what I have seen so far, I believe Ethiopia youth are taking the bull by the horn, and I believe with all youth coming together, we can make the world a better place. Today is not a day for training because time has been fast spent. I will just quickly introduce myself. Then another time I'll be coming on board to have the session with all distinguished delegates. As the Ambassador Yasmin has introduced me earlier, I am Julius Iyere. I'm from Nigeria. I hold a bachelor's degree in political science, a master's degree in political science, majoring in peace and conflict resolution, as well as another master's degree in diplomacy and strategic studies. I am a youth advocate. I have attended so many MUNs as delegates as well as officials.
Sir, please unmute yourself. We cannot hear you. Sorry, Julius. Unmute yourself, please. We cannot hear you.
Oh.
Yes, it's good now. Julius, can you hear me?
Oh, where are the delegates? Okay, we'll continue with our program. I think the delegates have network issues. All right. So the delegate from Burundi wants to chip in.
Okay, can you hear me?
So loud and clear.
Thank you so much. So Burundi believes that it is really urgent for us to change the way we live. It has never been more urgent to change the way we live. And we are here to propose a new program, a campaign to overcome this climate change and global warming. So we propose a campaign called Green Up to Cool Down. So Burundi believes that if we can warm up the earth, we can also cool it down. And we have two main objectives, which are to reduce the carbon. We must immediately shift from fossil fuel energy to renewable energy sources across the entire global economy. And we must also recapture very large quantities of carbon that have already been deposited in the atmosphere. These are the two main things that each nation in Africa and across the entire world should start tackling to make sure that we address this problem today. So we have 6 main ambitious targets, but with one main goal, which is to increase tree cover in every nation. We have started this program in Burundi. It is called Project Green Burundi, whereby youth generally comes in and volunteers to plant trees all across Burundi. Increase soil carbon sequestration, scale up shrubs, increase biomass energy production, and restore degraded forest lands, and lastly, suppress fires. If all these things are done, Burundi does believe that we'll overcome this challenge. The problem that will be left is how will this global campaign be done to overcome this climate crisis while alleviating poverty and hunger and caring for the land? So we bring a new question to the table. How is this going to be done? What are the other nations going to do to help carry out this project, but as well as care for the economies which are in a free fall since the beginning of this pandemic? Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Delegate from Burundi, who agrees, who says Burundi has adopted 6 ambitious plans. Maybe we'll share them more in detail later. The delegate from South Africa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So if I'm not wrong, we are talking about Paris Agreement. And for me to judge if it was successful or it was a failure, I want you to be attention with the key element of the Paris Agreement, which first are the collective obligation. The second one is the commitment to action in respect of mitigation, adaptation, and financial support, which by is an agreement to outline the commitment by each country to reduce the emission of the GHG, to support globally and also as a country, and also to adapt, by even the Burundian as mentioned, the adaptation through the goals, where the support will be emphasized, the effort will be put in. There's also a space for developing goal of the GHG, like what I mentioned before. There's also the sustainable development mechanisms, which in a larger proportion, which has not been really fulfilled because of that individualism between countries, first in African Union and also in the globe, But my last point is the last key, which is the Completeness Nexus, which mainly focus on let me focus in the inclusion of transparency, global stake take, and compliance. Because if you realize many states have to balance between economic growth and the protection of the environment, which sometimes it kind of like clashes, because for economic growth, you need to heather for trees, for mineral resources. So now there are a need of individual transparency and this can be only fulfilled through annual report, which my country, South Africa, really put efforts to submit, and we can share later the last year report where we give goals. I can mention one of them. It's to build the necessary institutional capacity for climate change response planning and implementation, which is done in the local level.
Thank you, delegates from South Africa. So, delegates from Uganda, are you finally back from the commercial break?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Uganda National Climate Change Policy have been drafted in 2015, whereby Uganda is looking forward into implementing this policy into the national development plans to achieve the sustainable development goals of climate action. Uganda came up with objectives to achieve this policy at the national level and a local level. So the following are the objectives. The first one, Uganda wants to identify and promote common policy priorities to address climate change in the country. Uganda also came up with a policy to identify and promote adoption policy responses for all Ugandans. The third one is to identify and promote mitigation policy response for Uganda. The fifth one is to identify and promote monitoring, detection, attributes, and prediction policy response for Uganda. Last but not least, Uganda also would want to support the integration of climate change issues into planning, decision-making, and investment in all sectors and transactional themes through appropriate institutional arrangement and legal framework, whereby we see Uganda also participated in the global climate campaign that took place in 2018 and also 2020, which has been drafted by the United Nations. And we call upon all the nations to come and join hands to work so that we can see success on how we can improve on the climate actions. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate from Uganda. Now, Uganda has ambitious plans to tackle climate change. Delegate from Rwanda, do you think Paris Agreement is a success or a failure? And if it's a success, how so?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I agree fully with the South African delegate, where he said there's a clash between the economic and the political warfare between climate change, because countries like the US and China would even though there's a bit of a development growth as they have tried to reduce the carbon emissions, they've tried to help curb climate change, they will still clash because of the use of oil that needs to be there. They will still clash because they're the main producers of the carbon emissions. And I think they confuse with controlling the sustainable. When you think about it, we want to try and control the carbon emissions. We don't want to take away from what they're trying to produce. And even in as my country, Rwanda, although we are one of the world's lowest per capita emissions of greenhouse gases, it is highly vulnerable to the impacts of temperature and rainfall variability. The country's average temperature has increased by 1.4 degrees since 1970, and it is assumed to increase even higher as the years go by, maybe even from 2050. And we have and Rwanda has numerous policy goals and policy objectives to help with this. For example, promoting a green economy. This has been major in Rwanda, that it is a resource efficient and low carbon and climate resilient. We create favorable conditions by attracting investments in green job creation through the management of the environment and climate mitigation actions. We are promoting and supporting local industries and small and medium-sized enterprises to adopt an environmentally sound technologies through provisions of appropriate incentives, strengthening the use of strategic environment assessment, which will impact the environment in a large way. We are also promoting green technologies, mainly green technology. We are trying to shift the country's policies, putting in place institutional and legal frameworks, because I feel like one of the major problems is not having an effective legal framework that will prevent people from even trying to emit more greenhouse gases. Also, reinforcing strategies to implement circular economy concepts for sustainable development to enhance climate resilience and adaptive capacity to protect the natural capital.
Thank you, Delegate from Rwanda. Rwanda has a lot of ways to implement the climate action. This pushes us to our next point. Another delegate from Uganda, are you back? Network?
Yeah. Thank you very much, Chair. I'm actually delegating the United States of America.
Oh, you are representing the US, okay.
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much. Climate change policy in the United States of America was first addressed in the beginning of the early 1950s, and the policy has transformed rapidly over the years and is being developed at both the state level, federal level, and the Democratic Party tends to advocate for the expansion of climate change mitigation policies, whereas the Republican Party tends to advocate for inaction or reversal of the existing climate change mitigation. So people in the United States may be seen divided, but when it comes to protecting the planet, the 25 governors have joined forces to support the Paris Agreement on climate change. A few years ago, that was in 2017, in June, 1st June, when the Trump administration announced its intentions to withdraw from the Paris Agreement. The governors of California, Washington, and New York stepped up to support the international agreement. Since then, the US Climate Alliance has grown to represent 24 actually states, in addition to Puerto Rico. So it continues to gain so many other members into the agreement and alliance. So the United States of America has gotten drafted over 7 key actions on climate change. That states one of which is establishing ambitious goals to reduce the greenhouse gas. As we've seen that all the states that joined the alliance agreed to implement the policies that advance the goals of the Paris Agreement for at least 26 to 28% reduction in the greenhouse gases. But many are pushing reduction even further. California, for example, set a statewide target to reach a carbon neutrality by 2045. New Mexico established a statewide goal of reducing the greenhouse gas emission by 40%, that is by 2030. Yeah. So the US has also gone ahead to sign legislation that ramp up renewable energies. For example, we saw Nevada passed a bill to increase the amount of electricity it gets from renewable sources to 50% by 2030. So the US has continuously supported the Paris Agreement and its objectives, you know. So despite the other side of the Trump administration are calling the Paris Agreement as a hoax, you know, but on the other hand, the people that are to be affected, it's not Trump and his administration, but the subordinates. That's why they come together to rise up and say, no, we are going hand in hand with the Paris Agreement to protect our environment and the world at large. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Delegate from the United States for that elaborate move. That pushes us to our next last, because if you see the contestation between Trump administration and the California and the city of mayors, this pushes me to this question: is climate change a scientific or a political issue? So we could see.
Well,
this is open to all delegates. We want to hear from delegates from all the spectrum. Is it really a scientific one, or is it really a political one? Is it justified for countries that are highly industrialized to tell the developing world that no, it's all right to reduce your emissions, reduce your industrialization? Is it fair for China to tell a country like Ethiopia, Rwanda, like you have to reduce, are the biggest emitters of carbon in the air? Is it really fair for developing world to adhere with climate change protocols and stuff like that? That's where I come with the question: is it a scientific issue or a political issue? Delegates, you can go ahead, delegate from yours to answer that across the delegates too, across other delegates too.
Yes. Thank you very much. Climate change itself, it's both a scientific and political, you know, where in an instance that on the political side of it, different countries and different leaders of different nations have to come together, you know, and sit down and sign, you know, agreements on how to, you know, to cap. On how to cap the climate change issue. But on the other hand, we do have leaders with different opinions who do have their own perspective of the climate change issue. So that's where the disagreements come in. But for we do believe that for climate change affects every country, you know, in one way or the other. We've seen the case, the current case in Kenya, where the locusts have invaded almost the whole country, you know, and this has hindered, you know, the production in the production sector and the agriculture sector. So I believe that it's both a political and scientific, but to be crystal clear that there is need for countries to be to take this issue as a very serious issue, not to politicize it, but to come up with the actual solutions to climate change. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Delegate. I quoted not to politicize it. So I want to hear from other delegates. Do we need to scientify it if the word exists, or do we politicize it? Yeah, so I want to hear from other delegates. Delegates from Uganda, you have something to say? Okay, other delegates from Ethiopia, Kenya, South Africa, Burundi. It's your time. Is climate change a political or a scientific issue? South Africa, the floor, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I want just to address to all our delegates and especially to the delegate of South Africa to really explain more on what it means by politicized, because as we know, that the first economical country, then with South Africa and other European country, and by pulling out from the Paris Agreement, I think it's where the issue comes, because it was not institutionalized. It was like political decision from the president of South Africa of USA. So, and that's really weakened all other aspects of climate change policy or climate change efforts. So for me, it's as a global situation, I think for me, it's political. It's a situation of policies taken by like governments and also institutions. So there's more effort towards scientific, like where we need data to predict the next move adaptation. Yeah.
Okay, so it's a question you're posing to the delegate from the US, right?
Yes,
okay, you have the privilege to reply, delegate from US. Hello? Okay.
Yes. When I meant politicizing the whole issue of climate change, we do, leaders have come up to take the issue in accordance to their own perspective of maybe some countries being the dominators of the whole agreement and all that. That's why I meant it politicizing, like pulling ropes, you know. Other countries are coming up to say that, yes, you know, we need to tackle this issue. And then the other leaders who do have their own interests say, no, we're not standing with this. Just like I gave in my one of the examples that the Trump administration came up and said, no, we're not standing with the Paris Agreement. But here come like the 24 governors from different states saying this is a serious issue that needs to be handled, you know.
Okay. It's a debate between South Africa and the US. What are other delegates, other countries saying about that? Okay, South Africa wants to reply. South Africa, you have the floor.
Yes, I just hope our colleague will pass the message to his president. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate from South Africa. I hope.
Thank you very much, too. Of course, yeah, I'll pass the message to His Excellency. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. This has got me today. Okay. The other delegates from Ethiopia, Kenya, Rwanda, what are your sentiments on this?
I would like to speak.
Right.
Okay. First, I would like to make a point that this issue is both political and scientific, because I say it's political and scientific at the same time. The only way that we can solve this problem is through scientific methods. So clearly the scientific method is involved here. But the politics is also there because right now, Africa contributes only 4% to the greenhouse gas emission, and yet it's quite prone to the climate change effects that we're about to witness. So we need to tackle this differently from the others, because we're not either we're not economically advantageous, or we're also being prone to the problems. So we have no gain here. So we need to tackle this alone, and we need to say, I would like to state that it's a little bit political around here, because we're not grown, we're not even food, like we haven't even reached our food security. So it will be hard for us to not use the industries for our economy growth. So I say, after growing China and America and other grown nations to say we should reduce the greenhouse emission, and we should not use industries. We should reduce the carbon emissions and stuff. We need to think about this. They need to give us solutions before they tell us what to do, because it's kind of hard to not feed our people. So I would like to claim that it's a little bit political around here, but it's also important to work around this issue. So I say it's a little bit political and as well as scientific. I'm not saying the Paris Agreement is wrong or we shouldn't tackle it, but I'm saying we need a more specific resolution or a specific resolution for Africa, because it's kind of hard for us to not use our industries since we're not even food secured. I know the climate change might cause floods and other unexpected stuff and demolish everything in a minute, but we also need to worry about feeding our people, because there's nothing worse than not feeding our people.
Right. Thank you, delegate from Ethiopia. Sorry. Feeding our people versus carbon emissions. All right. Another delegate from Ethiopia. I saw your hand up. Please, you have the floor.
All right. Thank you, Chair. I would like to support my co-delegate from Ethiopia, because as the delegate of Ethiopia, I would like to say that this issue is it was supposed to be scientific at first, because the problem is natural, and even though we are the ones who create it, the only way to solve it should be using the scientific ways. But then when we come to the case of the specific countries, like how the Paris Agreement has been treating to solve this problem, we all know, like the House is aware that the Paris Agreement has different points for different countries. That was the reason why even the U.S. and have been trying to get out of it. So personally, I would like to say that this case is getting politicized by countries, because all countries want to get something out of it, despite the fact that they're affecting the whole country, the whole other countries in the world. So as a delegate of Ethiopia, I would like to say that this case only gets to be politicized when it comes to a point of defending our country and affecting other countries by the steps we take to tackle this problem. Delegate would like to yield the floor back to the chair.
Thank you, delegate. Another hand, I say hand from another observer. If not, Sayik, you hear me? He's kind of frozen, sorry. Okay, I'll go with another observer. Yafet, what's your take on this? Yes.
Sorry about the lighting.
No problem.
Is my voice audible?
Very audible.
Wonderful. Okay, so I want to raise a bit of an issue with what Hirt has said, even though some of our opinions align together. When we're talking about a carbon footprint, we tend to talk about the industrial outcome of carbon footprint, and we don't consider the individual carbon print, which is main carbon footprint, which is mainly calculated from the appliances we use and the size of our households, and this is what I want to shine light upon.
Okay, so thank you, Yafet. Other delegates from Rwanda, Burundi.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I'd like to
No.
think that it is first political before it ever became scientific, because in our world, in our generation today, there needs to be industrial growth. And honestly, I believe it is just going to get worse and worse as this goes by. Yes, the Paris Agreement is there. Yes, there've been a decrease in carbon emissions, but if you think about, they will keep rising, they will keep growing with increase of industrial growth, because and also I think it is also economical, not only political and scientific, but also economical, because as a country, it's ruled by our leaders. Taxes, regulations are made by the people that we elected. When they refuse to go green because of oil, it's still a really big national income that's there. They will not back down just because the world is suffering due to climate change, especially when the US delegate talked about his own president. Yes, we are talking about him, especially like, yes, Donald Trump is still powerful and might be elected again because of the majority of his supporters are still in oil. They are, and also I feel like African countries will start falling because we need to grow industrially, and with that growth of industry means decrease in our climate, decrease in our health.
Okay, thank you, Delegate. Delegate from Burundi.
Thank you, Chair. Burundi does believe that it is both political as well as scientific.
Yeah.
But then Burundi doesn't really think we are going anywhere trying to ban industries or reduce reduce the productivity of industries. Burundi still stands on its project, its plan. We are still proposing the plan we brought to the table of trying to make sure that we shift from fossil fuel energy to renewable energy and recapture very large quantities of carbon that we've already deposited in the atmosphere. This is quite clear to everyone that this needs to be done, and this should start being done right away. The only problem still remains, how is this going to be funded? Who is going to fund this, and where is the money going to come from? I don't really believe that banning the industries is going to do us any good. I think trying to implement these other policies to reverse what has already been done and what's being done right now is the best way to go, and it is the best way to make sure we keep growing economically as a world, but also keep our planet safe and our agriculture productivity, among many others. I really stand on this because most of the countries in East Africa depend on agriculture and mainly rain-fed agriculture, and this agriculture that our economy stands for is always affected by climate change. Our Burundi has already been affected so much, but we also don't really think banning industries and stopping what is being done to develop as a world industrially is the best way to go. So the question remaining on the table is, how is this going to be funded? Thank you.
Thank you. The issue of funding is critical because in the Paris Agreement, the people pledged like developed countries should fund developing countries, but is it really feasible? You know, so the issue of funding, Burundi raises a critical issue. The issue of funding, very important.
Can the question be repeated, please? Because of internet network issues, I couldn't hear.
Okay, so Delegate from Burundi, can you repeat the question? As prepares.
Okay, so Burundi does believe that everybody understand that something should be done to reduce what has already been done and what is being done right now by the industries, like anything that affects the climate. So what the question is, who is going to fund this project that Burundi is bringing on the table, and or where is funding going to come from? Burundi does believe that we should discuss on where the money is going to come from to fund this project of ours that we are bringing to the table. Is it understandable?
Yes.
Thank you, delegate from Burundi. There's another delegate from it, Luli Seik. Oh, brother. You there, sir? Oh man, he raises up his hand, then he gets off. This is really bad. Anyway, when it comes, I see Yafet is back. Yafet, you are completing your argument.
Okay. Thank you very much again, Enoch. I've been having problems with the internet. Right, so,
yeah.
So what I was saying was we tend to focus on the industrial carbon footprint, and we tend to ignore the individual carbon footprint. And I'm going to relate this with the number of populations that that Africa has compared to the other Western and EU or Scandinavian countries, which are emitting a lot of which are emitting a lot of carbon out to the atmosphere. So when we're considering individual carbon footprint, we meant by how much does that person is using per day for his transportation, how many family members does he have, the size of your household, that means, and how efficient are your household appliances. What do you eat? How do you recycle? All of these things factor into the individual footprint. And in order to reduce this aggregate footprint, for example, Africa has about 1.26 billion population. So if one is emitting about half a ton of, I don't want to just assume, but about half a ton of carbon footprint per year, then multiply that with 1.26 billion times and you get a real significant number right there. Take the case of China, 1.5 billion. Take the case of India, 1.2 billion. So when you add these things, the number gets quite significant without even considering the industrial parts of the equation. And so to this part, I say, in order to reduce our carbon footprint, we need to be aware that each and every one of us has a play in this, and let's try to play our part in reducing this carbon footprint. Let's set our house in order, in other sense.
Thank you, delegate. Delegate from Kenya. What's your take on this? Oh yeah. Oh, well, at this point, I wanted to give each country just 2 minutes or 1 minute and a half to think of a final resolution at the table. Like, this is our action. What's our action? What's our action plan? One action plan should have this, because this climate thing is about funding too. How do you plan to fund? What's your key strategy? What are we going to do as a country? So I'll give a moderated caucus for 1 minute. So think about that. I have a timer, don't forget that. I'll just any observer can say something if you're not a country. Any observer can say something at least. So you have 30 seconds to come up, and it starts now. 1, 29, 28, 27, 26, 25, 24, 23, 22, 21, 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. I'm so generous with time, so I have given you enough time. Okay, cool. So we'll begin from which country is ready with their plans, strategic plans, final now. Any country ready? Why choose? South Africa. I'll go with my screen. Wherever I see close to my screen, that's how I'll go with. South Africa, sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, as South Africa, our strategy was to be focused on the local level, because we realized there's a lot of complexity between the government also to the local people, because as much as they want to save the environment, also to grow economically. So we designed a handbook from 2011, 2015, whereby we give social learning adaptation. Since we can give solution, then we need to adapt by where we give tools, research tools, and also learning tools to village and to the local level. For the fund, we want to support the NEPAD Climate Change Fund, and this can be found in the website of the African Union. Like fund economically to our neighboring country and regional country.
Thank you, delegate. Thank you. Ethiopia.
May I have the floor?
Yes.
All right, thank you, Chair.
Quick.
So as the delegate of Ethiopia, I would like to suggest for the countries in the world to decide in making this fruitful and have an agreement that is better than the Paris Agreement, because the Paris Agreement has its own problems. So I would like to suggest to take the advantages of this Paris Agreement, for example, for the fact that it encouraged countries to style, and it also had a global support. So I would like to say that we should take those points from the Paris Agreement and also improve the cons of this agreement. For example, it had affected the economies of countries in their own ways, because it had different rules for each and every countries. So the other one is that I would like to suggest for this resolution to have a fair allocation of responsibilities for all countries in the world in accordance to their contribution for this chaos. Delegate would like to yield the floor back to the chair.
Thank you for your strategic plans. Another delegate from Ethiopia. Have the floor. So,
may I?
Yes.
Okay, I would like to present three issues. Like, I would like to tackle this problem on three main bases. One is regionally. The second one is first as a country, second regional, and the third is global. So as an Ethiopian, we are not fully developed. So I would like to consider reforestations and planting trees as a main solution, because since we cannot use the solar energy, wind energy, and other alternatives as a main source. And for what Yafet said earlier, I would like to, if we develop our economy, we can also reduce our carbon footprints, I guess. And the second one is regionally. Regionally, we need to work as East African, West African, South African, since our geographical locations give us a common geographic issues to work on. And globally, the Paris Agreement has brought a lot of countries together. So dropping it totally wouldn't be a good solution for me. But like improving, as my friend, the delegate from Ethiopia said, I would like to improve the situation on the Paris Agreement. As I have said earlier, two issues. One, research must be fully funded by UN. It should be distributed all around the world, since the geographic conditions of the world are different. And the second one is it needs to be legally binding. And the third one is we need more focus areas, since the geographic conditions and problems of different geographic areas are different. So that's why we need to tackle this problem both globally, regionally, and as a country. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now the delegate from Ethiopia, I say hand up. Okay, Rwanda.
Thank you, Chair. I will not stress this enough. As a Rwandan delegate, we have really emphasized on going green, having a green economy that is resource efficient, low in carbon and climate resilient, creating jobs for green economies, because people need an incentive, people need a reason to want to work, wanting to change climate. We need to educate the masses, we need to create the awareness. But my main focus would be on enforcement mechanisms and legal frameworks. We cannot have a veto on climate change. This will kill us in the end. Climate change is a global crisis. We have to all come together. One state will hurt any state. Like, for example, the Lebanon explosion has affected climate change majorly. We need to think, we need to resolve this, and we really need to enforce something that will help us in the end. We need to enforce it, and we need to have frameworks in order for us to solve this problem regionally, globally, especially what the Ethiopian delegate said. We also promoting and supporting local industries, small and medium-sized enterprises. I think I digested it enough in the first round, but that's my main strategy. We need to enforce this.
Thank you, delegate from Rwanda. Rwanda says we need to emphasize green revolution. Burundi, your final comments, your final strategic plans, sir.
Thank you, Chair. Burundi still believe that this campaign cannot be fought, this fight cannot be fought individually, because you can fight it on your own. Burundi can apply its own measures to fight against climate change and global warming, but when our neighbors or the world isn't doing something to also change, this never be efficient. So Burundi brings this to the table, and it is a global plan. So Burundi wants to emphasize that we do not want to ban industries or any other activities developed countries are doing to grow. We do believe it is essential for growth.
Yeah.
But at least these developed countries, these big countries, they at least have to pay, or at least they at least have to fund our global campaign to overcome the climate crisis while alleviating poverty and hunger, and also caring for the land. So Burundi stands saying that developed countries such as the US and China should pay for our evergreen campaign, and for all for all the developing countries, especially countries in Africa. That's what Burundi says, and this should be legally binding to all the countries. Thank you.
Thank you. Big countries, US, what's your strategic plan? People are saying you need to pay for the rise of climate change. Do you agree? Your final comments.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. As with the United States of America, while working hard together to reduce on the emissions, especially from the vehicles, because a lot of people do have vehicles, so there's too much polluting of air, and then creating the greenhouse, hello, sorry.
Yeah, here you sir.
Coming up together to speak against. Yes, sorry. So I was saying that the United States are coming together to draft policies on zero emission from vehicles, and at the same time to cut the air pollutants. And then for the case of financing the low developed countries, yes, we the United States of America are facing a lot of hiccups where the two different parties come in, like the Republicans are saying this and then the Democrats are saying this. But as a country and as a global, atrocity, we need to come together and come on to the table and say this is affecting the United States of America and as well as other countries. So we're going to stand together and then settle our issues as a country, and then we come up together again to make allies together with these low developed countries and see the way forward, how we can be able to help them financially, and then to go ahead to help them be able to curb the climate change issue.
Thank you. Like a politician, or let's come together, and we so coming together to where, so really a political statement. Delegates, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I hope everyone did their presentation well, and everyone laid their way forward, action plans. What I've picked is financing. The problem of financing is critical. The problem of responsibility. The developing countries are saying, developed countries, you sponsor the project. Developed countries are saying, no, we will work together. So the issue of financing, cooperation, that. But as a fact, climate change is a real fact. It can be politicized, but has also scientific proofs that our planet is in danger. So the earlier we tackle it, the better we save our planet for future of our kids, for future of our people, for future of even ourselves. So thank you very much, everyone. Thank you so much, delegates. I would say that you did well, extensive research, a few points. You are informed, you articulate, you did your very best. So I say that we are choosing the best speaker. I have failed to choose the best speaker. You are all of you are best speakers. So in my view, and thank you very much for sharing. So if there is no any other point of inquiry, order, anything, I will declare this session adjourned. Is there any form of inquiry, a question, a comment? There? Yes?
Hello.
Hello?
Hello. On the point on financing,
Yeah.
can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
On the point of financing, whereby we are debating on whether the developed countries or the countries that are not yet developed, sorry, who should be funding who should be funding projects that are entailed towards ending climate change or rather curbing climate change. I think the responsibility should fall on both the developing countries and the developed countries, because every country is contributing towards causing climate change. Therefore, I feel that every country should therefore be responsible in curbing the issue based on how much carbon your country is producing. And on this note, I'm going to talk about say, for example, in developed countries, there are the number of industries that are there. And in developing countries, there are also industries that are there that are benefiting from whatever economic things that they are doing. Therefore, I think that you're going to have to put in the law, the polluter pays law, whereby for every country that is producing carbon, they're supposed to pay for the amount of pollution. It's a law that's there. It's called the polluter pays. You can go check it out. I don't know. I haven't read so much about it. And therefore, my point is that both the developed and the developing countries should both partake in ending or rather curbing climate change. And then if therefore an industry is not able to pay for the damage that it's causing to the climate, I think that the industry therefore should either come up with solutions to reduce their carbon footprint, or yeah, actually that's the only solution they can come up with, to reduce the carbon footprint through sustainable development. Sustainable development being ensuring development that does not affect the ability of future generations to also does not affect the future generations, in short.
Thank you.
I don't know if you've gotten my point, but that's all I have to say.
Yeah, we got you well. We got you well. There's a hand. Yes. The speaker?
The floor?
Yes.
All right. Is it in order to give a point of information for the delegate who just spoke?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah.
All right. I would like to state a point as the delegate of Ethiopia and then ask the question for the delegate. All right. So according to the information we have in hand, the House is well aware of the case that the emission of the greenhouse gases are predominantly from high-income countries, while the negative effects of the climate change are predominantly in low-income countries. This means that the climate change is generally expected to hit the developing countries harder than the industrial countries. Developing countries are less capable of adapting to the change due to their poverty. And how does the delegate suggest for all the countries in the world to contribute for this problem tackling situation, when the real situation in hand is the fact that the developed countries contribute more for this chaos? Yes, delegate yields the floor back to the chair.
Thank you. I don't know whether delegate is ready to answer you.
Yes, I had her question. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I did hear her question. What I was saying was that we cannot leave the burden on can someone help me please, on
developed countries.
Funding. We cannot leave the problem on funding on only developed countries, because also as developing countries we are also partaking in the in construction of industries and developing ourselves. Meaning, what I'm trying to say is that come 2050, in the years to come, we're going to be better developed than we already are. If I'm not wrong, I'm pretty sure we're going to get there. And I'm pretty sure we're going to get there. That means that we're also going to be contributing to climate change. So if, for example, the developed countries are the only ones who are going to be taking the burden of funding, it means that when we come to that point where developing countries are developed, we can't then again just leave it to them. So we have to also partake in it to ensure that we are also responsible for what we are producing. That's why I'm saying each developing or developed, you're supposed to take on the responsibility based on how much emissions your country has.
Yeah.
I have a point to speak,
Right,
Mr. Chair.
This question, okay, sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
After you, South Africa. Oh, you want to reply? Sorry, you want to reply?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes, I
Go
was
ahead.
requesting the right to reply.
She wants to, yeah, then you go ahead. Then South Africa will go ahead. Hey, first week, we ended formal one. We just, you know, brainstorming. After, this is after MUN. So yeah, so if you want to really leave, yeah, feel free to leave. I thank you very much for your kind patience and your wonderful presentation. It was meticulous. I agree. So if you want to leave, you can, or holistically leave. And if you want to stay, we can have a chat. I don't mind. Thank you. So go ahead with the, I just wanted not to keep people in, you know. Yeah.
Okay. So the question for the delegate was supposed to be like, is this point being proposed to create the vibe of working together, supporting each other? Is it for the sake of creating that vibe, or does the delegate actually believe that all the countries in the world should be contributing equally to tackle this problem?
Good question. That was actually what I wanted also to ask. Yes.
Yes, it was in the aim, or rather in the faith, that we should all work together towards ensuring towards curbing climate change. My point was that if we say that the responsibility on solely funding curbing climate change is going to be on the shoulders of developed countries, it means that the developing countries, say in the developing countries, we also have our own industries and we also contribute towards carbon emissions. So if we do not contribute towards helping to curb it, we might, go under the bus and just continue mass producing products without actually caring what we are putting out in the environment. So what I was saying was that if we work together, developed or developing, if we work together,
yes,
but mainly focusing on who's producing more, because you're producing more, you're going to have to chip in more. Because I'm producing less means I'm going to have to produce less. So if we work together in that faith, we are both going to generate a sense of responsibility. And later on in future, we will not have countries lagging behind, still producing high amounts of carbon emissions. That was my point. In the aim of sustainable development, my agenda is sustainable development as a whole.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, South Africa, you raised. Oh no! Before South Africa, Ethiopia, Haiti. You raised your hand first, then second South Africa. You unmute. Unmute. Okay, let me.
He can go ahead.
Oh.
The delegate from South Africa can go ahead.
Okay, your question is answered.
Not really, but I would like to speak last.
Okay.
Okay.
You have good diplomatic relations. That's nice. So it's South
Thank
Africa.
you, Delegate of Ethiopia. Yes, I just want to join, just to add on what Eve has said. Actually, that she mentioned the index on like the more you produce, the more you need to contribute.
Yeah.
Why it will work, because in Sweden, Ireland, there's that actually that process by where an agency can, that is a quota for amount of this emission you are producing. And if you extend that quota, you have to pay. And many companies have to close because they didn't respect that. It's true there is a lot of issue of transparency, like what I mentioned even before, which is one of the key elements of the Paris Agreement. So for developing country, the problem is where if we don't like share information as an individual country, that's why we failed on contributing to the climate change.
Right.
So without transparency, we can say on paper, we can submit a report, but without like the need of increase of agency, like independent agency to actually look upon industry, small industry and local production. Yeah.
Wow, cool. Yes, anyone wants, you can now, it's your time. It's your turn now. Yeah.
So I would like to mention, I would like to suggest for our fellow delegates that this is an issue which should be tackled globally. That is a very obvious thing to say. Yes, we should tackle this globally, but we need to focus on how. So when we ask the question how, we can tackle this question, we can tackle this problem in two ways. One is working globally, and the second one is making it should be feeding each other. The solution that we should give should be feeding each other. The developing countries should be able to reduce carbon emission on what they can. What I mean by that is the developing countries cannot stop using industries and generating more greenhouse gases, but we can also help out by using less costly ways such as reforestations and planting trees. And the developing countries and the developed countries can help by funding us in order to work in a less polluting way. So it should be fitting each other rather than giving responsibilities on the developing country should do that and the developing country should do that. So I say we should tackle it in a feeding each other way.
It's a very technical issue, climate change. Some it is politicized, of course. Like you can't expect, like it's unfair, extremely unfair for a country like Ethiopia or Rwanda or Burundi to contribute the same amount of, to mitigate the same amount of carbon dioxide. Countries like Japan, China, US, extremely unfair. We should, my point of view is Africa should do, in my point of view, this is not standard, it's my point of view. I think Africa should focus on planting trees, creating that green environment, but we should industrialize without limit. That's my view. Yeah. All right, if there is no any other point, thank you so much. Beautiful Saturday. Oh, US, you have a complaint and a message to take to Donald Trump.
Yes. Thank you very much. I was still delivering the information to His Excellency Donald J. Trump. Also, another point to be taken serious about financing is the misappropriation of funds. We've seen the African countries have, especially the leaders themselves, have misappropriated misappropriated funds that are have been set to some, like for example, we've seen in Uganda, several times the northern part of Uganda, and the money Hello, sorry, I was caught up by network, but I was still saying that before we come up to fund the projects and different African countries need to first settle the issue of the embezzling of funds and misappropriation. Thank you very much.
African countries have to facilitate. Hey, yo, that is a serious accusation. Yeah? Oh, how to first settle embezzling fund. All right, I see that. Okay. Me, I think that like you, I think Africa, like I always say, we just have to first, before we think like a global thing, man, let's first settle home. Can we have like, can we industrialize more? Can we industrialize more? Can we have more industries? And if we will reach that level, these guys during Industrial Revolution, they were not thinking about climate change. They are not thinking. It is a new trend. So people like here in Toronto, only in Toronto, there is no day they could be blackout of electricity or something. They stand by, industries have to work. So you tell me where we come from, electricity blacks out for an hour or for some few hours, if by chance a day, if by not 2 days, So how do you convince me that I should not build industries and I observe climate change mitigation? It doesn't make sense, because even here, now, we have factories that manufacture vehicles, Tell me a factory in Africa that manufactures vehicles. Maybe in South Africa. The African delegate can tell us more. So you find like it is not really fair. Let first industrialize. Then the climate change. By the way, even mitigating climate change is expensive to do so. Green here they make hybrid buses. How much can we afford that? Hybrid buses, hybrid trains. There is a famous train in Europe called Europa train that goes around Europe. It's hybrid. It's called eco-friendly. You've heard about Tesla, the young guy who's making moves, Elon Musk. So he's producing friendly Tesla cars. They just use solar and power. So I find that as a luxury, you can have solar cars and put, because to have solar, you must have standby electricity. That's number one. Yeah, power, standby power. So I think we can still have that. Those are my kind of weird thoughts, but I think we just have to industrialize more.
Yeah, can I add on this?
Sure, Yafe. Yes.
Yeah, you see, my problem with US, as long as they say investment of funds and everything, just look, they're the first economic country.
Yeah.
But the effort they put, let's say even in renewable energy, it's very low, you see, because not that policy of, let's say like in Sweden, if you buy like a Tesla car, you kind of like get a token to like for electricity of any power, and this is the most country with a lot of Tesla cars because of that policy. But in US, they're the first industrialized country. They have a lot of funds. They can build industry like one after the other day. But why they're still relying on, let's say, oil, in those biogas, you see? So it kind of like, they say, yeah, you're Africa now, you need to settle your issue, but look at the US, you know, that they produce a lot of carbon.
Yeah.
So it's a bit unfair to
And
say,
that's
you know.
and that's why Trump is just want to scrap off Paris Agreement, because Republicans want prosperity. Don't tell them climate change stuff like that. Yeah. So true.
I have a point to make right here.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The Trump administration and the Paris Agreement issues is like a totally political, I would like to call it a selfish and destructive plan towards it. Because it's only, I'm calling it this because one, the issue that they're raising is that we need economy, it's going to affect our economy. How can we talk about affecting the economy when the one who's being affected is us, and the economy that they're developing over years can be demolished by the climate change causes or effects in a minute or 2 minutes, like perhaps. So how can we like, how it doesn't give much sense. I call it totally absurd.
Oh, may I speak?
Yes. After is Yafet and is Eve? Maybe if you're there. Yes. Okay, go ahead, Lydia.
All right. So I think I've been observing this from also other different medias as well. Everybody is aware that the Paris Agreement has affected the US, even economically. It has affected a lot of citizens because it came through the, what do you call it? It came through their jobs. It forced them to change their jobs. It affected the country as a whole. It affected the country very much. That's why Trump has been trying to get out of it. But I personally think that the problem most of us face right now is America is already pictured in our mind to save all the countries in the world, because America is responsible for most of the problems created in the world, and so the country is also expected to take the responsibility and fix all the problems. And I think what the real situation in hand is that Trump is trying to protect his people, not the rest of the world. As the president of the US, I think he's right. But we, as the people in the world, we think he's wrong. So I think that's the wrong picture that we have in our mind, that America should be responsible and should give a hand to all the other countries, because most of the problems are obviously created because of Africa. I think we're missing a point right here.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a very good point, because the people don't differentiate between diplomacy, the mouth, and real politic. Now, real politic is different from, oh, we should work together. Of course, at the UN, all people say, we are one, we are one. But mind you, when people go back to their countries, each country has an interest to protect, The problem is people don't differentiate sessions like this at the UN, agreements, and real politics. So people expect what happens at the UN should happen in individual countries. It can't really. like you said, he's a Republican, so they are securing political points. You know, create jobs, nationalize stuff, their industries, protect their industries, and more growth. So he's scoring political points, and like they say, it will remain just a barking dog that can't bite. Those, you know, but but when you read the climate change, are you guys familiar with the Kyoto Protocol? Yeah, so it has at least more better, like more a bit liberal policies, which is a bottom-up approach, like community, cities, you know, like that's why like California opposed Trump's, you know, quest to withdraw from Paris Agreement, and they're saying for us as California, we're here in support. So it is more like more brought to people, community-based, decentralized, which is kind of better. Like you could even hear in Oslo, students who are termed as climate change activists, every Monday they go to parliament to protest. So every Monday around the parliamentary square, like, we need our future, we need our future. And you're like, these people don't have anything to do. So you find like even a student who doesn't have any capacity to influence policy, international, either national or international, he feels like it's our responsibility. I think that's what climate change activists and Paris Agreement has achieved, is to feel like everyone, it is my responsibility to protect the planet. You find a student is there in a dormitory, is in school, and say, it is my responsibility to protect the planet, but you don't know which planet you are protecting. So they have done a great job, like translating it to any ordinary people with like who just they care about stuff. So it's good. Yafet, you have something to say? You are quiet today. Are you good, brother?
Yes, I am good.
Good.
I don't have a lot of opinion about this climate change.
Yeah.
I haven't formed, so I've been staying quiet a lot.
All right. All right. Thank you, guys. If you don't have anything to say, we can call it a wonderful weekend. These sessions are really helping, like, you know, brainstorm what affects the world, and how we come with points, and how we enlighten. I'm sure people who didn't know about Paris Agreement have known Paris Agreement. If you knew, perhaps you've increased your research in it, you know a lot of stuff now. So it's good, it's good. And I don't classify myself as a climate activist. So me, I want more industries to be built. Any climate activists in the room? Diehards. These are all capitalists who are here.
Capitalism is good.
Yeah?
Hard to argue with that.
Yeah, I didn't hear you speak.
Capitalism is good. It's hard to argue with that. The point is to exist that we're having right now.
Yeah, you know. Any climate activists in the room?
It's kind of hard to be a climate activist if you're African and you're craving for food.
That's true, by the way. That's true. Like, you're hungry and you're like, oh no, climate, we are saving our planet. What are you saving? First eat food, you know? Yeah. So I think and the bad thing, by the way, that I've seen is because of globalization and a lot of flow of information and flow of ideas, people care about these days things I would consider secondary. You know, you find like a person, an African country is going to endorse climate change. They hardly even feed themselves, and they are like, "What are you going to ratify? You know, why? You know, it's like you are pulled like the forces of globalization and stuff. And because let me tell you, every game has big boys. There are big boys in this who are just lobbying for their own interests. So finding ratifying for emissions, reduce emissions. What emissions are you reducing? Vehicles, cars, bicycles? It's, it doesn't make sense at all. Like, you know, so that's a very good point. Like African, we have a lot of first-hand things to talk about. But I'm not disputing the fact that climate change is real. Ours is still low. Let's plant trees. Let's encourage green cities. That's enough. Let's discourage deforestation. People cut trees and people like that. Let's plant more trees in cities, in the villages, and where, you know, green revolution. But you can't tell it's carbon tax. There is no carbon tax. So what am I reducing carbon tax for? You know.
With the planting trees, we all agree with the planting things, especially.
Hello.
I agree with planting.
Delegates in Ethiopia.
Yeah.
Yes, because we held a record
Yes.
planting trees.
Yeah. Dominic, you're saying something? He has internet issues.
Can I speak?
Yes, Eve.
I think when it comes to why I think African countries are also partaking in agendas to bring about to combat climate change is because we already can't feed ourselves. So the thought of them ruining our already bad situation and making it worse to a stage that we can't.
Thank you very much.
Sorry. Sorry.
Dominic.
So, I was saying that we are at a bad situation, so we also have to partake in the ensuring that we combat climate change, because if the current trend goes on, it means that we are going to be at a worse place in the future. Yeah.
I agree. So it's good, like the young.
Yes.
Yes, go ahead, Dominic.
Well, I was just seconding on the idea of us focusing on the first priorities, for especially that is to be put on plate. You know, like we're starving. Like many African countries are still hunting for the daily needs. You know, so we need to focus on first looking at the daily needs, and then later on we can come up to solve these issues of climate change and all that. Yes, climate change but at the same time, for example, in my country, meal of that wouldn't be necessary, you know. And besides, like with the African countries, can solve many things on our own. Especially to do with the starvation and all that, we need to cooperate. You know, like many African countries are fertile, and then we see Uganda, the back end, we see Cameroon flooding with food products because it was affected. I mean, the economy was affected by COVID, so there is surplus in the market, and yet there are other countries that are starving. You know, so we need to stand in together for every African country and solve the issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dominic. Absolutely. If all countries come together, then we will have more. Like you're saying something, South Africa?
Yeah, me, I'm just ready to say like good night. Yeah.
All right.
I'm departing. Yeah.
You said you're from Congo?
Yes, from Congo. Yeah.
Are you in Kinshasa now?
No, I'm in Nairobi. That's where I'm schooling. Yeah.
Oh, Nairobi. Okay.
Yeah.
Kinshasa.
You said?
How's Kinshasa? Have you been?
Only once. Like it's 2,000 kilometers, and yeah, only once for vacation. Actually, right after my exams, so I went there at the beach and they were sent. Then right now, I just traveled to in the south, Zambia and west. Yeah, in this thing.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Thank you, man. Jose Maria. All right. See you.
Bye. Radiant and Erit.
Safe from COVID, huh? Don't party so much. Yeah? I know Kenya.
True.
Kenyans freestyle people, man. Yeah.
Okay. Ciao.
All right, so see you. All right. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you for coming. Let's stay in touch. Looking forward. Oh, I forgot. The next topic will be about gender. The wonderful topic you brought up. You guys brought up. So it will be about gender. Yes.
Is it next week?
I can see the smile on her face.
I could sense that too. I could see that. People are sad about climate change. People don't talk about.
I'm rather a feminist than a gender enthusiast.
Yeah, you're not a climate, but
no.
This is the interesting thing. Most feminists are climate change activists. At least
in the developing countries, and no, we're not.
At least all my friends here who are identify themselves as like radical feminists are also climate change activists.
Because I bet you live in Ontario, Canada. It's a developed country. Maybe that's why. So I have my own good reasons for not being a climate enthusiast, as I have said earlier, I guess.
Okay. Yeah. I'm just not a climate, but I support. If there is someone who is like, let's plant trees, I am full support of climate, not carbon tax. We don't have anything to carbon tax. No.
Totally.
What are you going to do?
I am done, I guess.
All right. Bye. Keep in touch.
Bye.
Yeah.
Will do.
All right. Dominique. Honorable Delegate from US, can you call Trump and tell him? Yeah?
Yeah, I already passed the message long time, and we're yet to sit together, and then I agree on what to do about that.
Please do. We want our climate fixed. Yeah. All right.
All right.
We also want our Trump issues fixed.
Our Trump issues.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah. What are you going to do? Yeah.